The Legendarium is home to a whole host of creatures, monsters, races, cultures, and even its own languages. But today, for this Halloween special, I would like to focus on something a bit more sinister: the dark powers of Tolkien. Tolkien is no stranger to dark powers, and he crafts these dark powers based off of real-life cultural things that haunted humans in the real world. The culture of the past had fueled Tolkien's dark powers, and with his creative mind, brought them to life on the pages of the Legendarium. Let's start with the Chain Gang of Mordor, the Witch King and the Nazgul. The Witch King of Angmar and the 9 Nazgul start strutting their stuff in the Second Age in Akallabeth. Also called Ringwraiths, Black Riders, the Nine, and Ulari, these ghostly figures are wraiths, which means they're neither living nor dead. Nazgul translates directly to Ringwraith in Black speech, from Naz meaning ring and Gul, a spirit controlled by Sauron. These Ringwraiths are deadly combatants. They could not be slain by arrows, and any mortal blade that was thrust into them would be destroyed. The only weapons that could harm them were endowed with a special power, such as the Blade of Westerness given by Tom Bombadil that Merry used. The presence of a wraith could be felt in their courage-breaking screeches that would scare men. One audible trait the Nazgul possess is their distinct sniffing sound. Black breath, an evil aura that surrounded them, encompassed those that came under its shadow and eventually passed into silence and died. As for the Witch King himself, the leader of this pack, the only thing Tolkien mentions of him was that he was a lord of the Easterlings, a race of men who lived in the eastern Middle-earth and served dark powers. He was known to wield a deadly mace and would destroy stone with words of power at the gates of Minas Tirith. When wielding his blade, he could summon the Morgul steel to ignite, although it's unclear if other Nazgul had this ability. In mythology and legend, a wraith is a phantom or a specter that's either a manifestation of a living being or a ghost of the dead. In the cultures Tolkien pulls from, the fear of death is a force to be reckoned with. Aspects of the Nazgul are shared with zombies in that they are undead and mindless, but the Nazgul in Tolkien's craft are much more malevolent and potent. He gives some of these Nazgul backstories, but even then their backstories are shrouded in mystery. Even the very number of Nazgul has a meaning. 9 is a magic number in some cultures. A cat has 9 lives, and the Pythagorean numerology has the number 9 associated with a tyrant. In Norse mythology, 9 is the most common and significant number. 9 worlds in the cosmos, and 9 days in which Odin hung from the world tree. Viking ceremonies at Uppsala lasted 9 days on the 9th year. Number-wise, 9 is the last of the single-digit numbers, and as such in Norse mythology, it is seen as a symbol of death and rebirth. The Nazgul sniffing trait can be attributed to a notion by Heraclitus, who commented that in Hades, the Greek underworld, the souls of the dead are nothing but smoke, and they can identify each other only through smell. But if you think the Nazgul are terrifying, this foe is beyond you. One of the most noted characters in the first stage are the Valarakuar, or cruel demons. These were powerful Marai spirits that the Sindar elves of Beleriand called Balrogs, or demons of might. Balrogs are classified as man-shaped giants clouded in smoke and fire with nostrils that can breathe flame. They wield fire whips and flaming swords in combination with maces and axes. As Tolkien began his edits, he changed his perception of the Balrogs. They became fewer, larger, and more powerful, from a host of 100 to just a group of 7. During the War of Wrath, they were nearly wiped out, save for the few that fled deep within the mountains. Their leader was a notorious giant Balrog named Gothmog. In the Legendarium, Gothmog was the king of the Balrogs. Gothmog, meaning dread oppressor or Kalimbo, is depicted as a great fire giant whose most noted appearance is in the Silmarillion. He was savage, dangerous, and was more powerful than the other Balrogs. Despite the Balrog's role in Tolkienian lore from the Silmarillion to the Fellowship of the Ring, there are only 2 names of Balrogs that are mentioned. One is Gothmog himself, and the other is Lungorthin, mentioned in the Lay of the Children of Húrin. Even in the film, the Balrog that Gandalf faces doesn't even have a name. Instead, the Balrog is referenced as the Bane of Durin. The origins of the Balrogs can be traced back to the demonic furies of the Greco-Roman age. Even though opposite in sex, the Furies were underworld deities and avenging spirits who emerged from the pits of Tartarus. Other inspirations can be traced to the Norse fire giants of Muspelheim, the region of fire, in Norse mythology. This is evident in Tolkien's own notes published by John Troville Petre. Several other scholars have linked this text to the creation of the Balrogs. For Gothmog himself, Tolkien could have imagined Gothmog being akin to the Sumerian giant Humbaba in the Epic of Gilgamesh, who holds similar characteristics to Gothmog in both size, strength, and ferocity. But this is Tolkien we're talking about. Here in Middle-earth, there be dragons. Dragons had always captivated the minds of writers and fairy stories. However, in Tolkien's prose, these dragons serve a much darker purpose. Dragons, as Tolkien describes in the Silmarillion, are the creation of the first Dark Lord, Morgoth. His most noted and first dragon is Glaurung, the father of all dragons, and the greatest of the Urloki, the fire-breathing dragons of Middle-earth. According to Tolkien, Glaurung was a giant serpent-like dragon with iron scales and sharp claws, and a tail that could crush armies. Tolkien's second most noted dragon is the wind-fire drake Anglakon. Called Anglakon the Black, he makes his greatest appearance in the War of Wrath. In the Silmarillion, however, Anglakon is not featured as prominently as Glaurung. His first introduction is quite short because it's also his last. Anglakon is featured in the chapter regarding Beren and Luthien and the War of Wrath. His name comes from the Sindarian tongue containing Ankh, jaws, and Alak, meaning rushing. Scholars argue that Tolkien's craft of dark dragons like Anglakon and Glaurung were part of his effect in his world of shadow and flame. Dr. Christine Larsen wrote a segment on dragons within this Shadowverse, and tied the ferocity and power of dragons to volcanoes or even meteors. Many Scandinavian myths and Scottish folklore tie in dragons or dragon-like species to these fire-loving, lava-spewing meteors and volcanoes. Dragons have long been in mythology in the West and in the East. Medieval Christians believed in the serpent in the garden, St. Michael battling a seven-headed dragon, and feared that their very souls would be devoured in hell. In both instances, these dragons are defeated by heavenly means. The dragon in the Bible is chained up and cast into hell, while Glaurung is slain by Turin and Anglakon is killed via a boat to the face piloted by Erendil. But how about we switch to the first big bad? Let's talk about Morgoth. Morgoth is the very origin of the dark powers of Tolkien's Middle-earth. As one of the Valar, Morgoth was called Melkor, he who arises in might. He was christened Morgoth by Mandos after he destroyed the Trees of Light and stole the Silmarils. Morgoth fled into the Iron Hills and built his fortress, Utumno, and laid his foundations in Angband. From then on, Tolkien describes that Morgoth wages 5 great wars against the Valar, and gives some description as to what Morgoth looked like. The first Dark Lord was tall like a tower, wearing a crown of iron, wielding a long black shield and a hammer called Grond. His face is twisted and battle-scarred, and his hands are in constant pain from the translucent fire of the Silmarils. Morgoth was known for his power, specifically his creations of the dragons and the Balrogs, although Tolkien didn't describe how he did it. His most noted creation was the orcs, by torturing elves and filling them with dark powers. Morgoth himself holds a similar position to that of Lucifer or even Loki. Like Morgoth, Lucifer was an angel who rebelled against God and was punished and sent to hell. Both Morgoth and Lucifer lusted for power, and both hated their betters. Lucifer with God and Morgoth with Ilúvatar. In a sense, both are rebels, but rebels by which they were driven by pride and envy. In short, both Morgoth and Lucifer sought to become God the Creator themselves. But who needs to become a god when you can just craft powerful man-bling? You know who I'm talking about. Originally named Marion, weird name, Sauron was a highly gifted student of Alue, the craftsman, and became a skilled craftsman himself. Like Morgoth, Sauron had a need for power and control, and sided with Morgoth during his early reign in Angband. Renamed Gothurar, he became the most trusted lieutenant of Morgoth, being reckoned as the greatest of his allies and servants in the wars of Beleriand. From his fortress of Tol in Goroth, Sauron was directly responsible for the death of Bahrir and later the Noldorian king Finrod during the quest for the Silmarils. Sauron then makes his biggest appearance in the Second and Third Ages. After Morgoth's defeat during the War of Wrath, Sauron took the reins of power, moving his man cave from Angband in the north and built a new kingdom in Mordor in the east. In order for him to knock out his enemies in one blow, he came in the guise of an elf and helped to craft the Rings of Power. 3 for the elves, 7 for the dwarf lords, and 9 for men. However, Sauron forged a ring in secret that could bind the rings to his will. In his forge, in Mount Doom, Sauron forged the One Ring and poured his life force into it. Unfortunately for him, he was defeated by an alliance of elves and men. The ring was taken from him, but its corruption survived, and the man who cut it out, Isildur, kept it until it betrayed him and was found by Gollum. In spirit form, Sauron returned with a new title as the Necromancer, but was forced to leave his stronghold of Dol Guldur after the White Council attacked and banished him. He fled back to Mordor and rebuilt Barad-dûr, the Dark Tower. Whereas Morgoth was strong in power, Tolkien crafts Sauron's main weapon as deception. Once again, Tolkien's biblical devil trickery aspects play into his work. In Sauron and in the One Ring, both grab allies by deceiving them with dreams of power and individual glory, wasting them away until they become like ringwraiths or like Gollum, who both loves and hates the One Ring. Yet it must be said that Sauron himself is a product of seduction, and that Morgoth seduced him into joining him and his cause. As for his control over the orcs, the allegiance these orcs hold to their master is merely one of deception. Yet the promise of power and glory fails. Sauron turns to threats and overwhelms the orcs with his very power. Many of these orcs are tricked into believing that Sauron himself is a godlike figure, incapable of doing no wrong. The darkness that Tolkien crafts within Sauron is a being that cannot match through strength of arms, but instead relies on deception and shrewdness as his main defense. Unlike Morgoth, who seemed to be on a path of self-destruction, Sauron looked beyond his former master to a new idea: domination. We can say that the very nature of Tolkien's dark powers can still be debated. Their crafting by Tolkien are results of mythos and experience combined together to create haunting images of overpowering, shrewd, and terrifying dark powers. These dark powers hold special purposes in the Legendarium, with each one signifying moral and human concepts that have been discussed in previous stories. It is the art in which Tolkien builds them, molds them, and showcases these powers in their dark display that makes them noteworthy of attention. Happy Halloween, everyone.